Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And today, the Philadelphia Phillies start a series with the Cincinnati Reds. How will they fare? What does the pitching matchup look like for the opening game? We'll get into all of that. Plus, should we worry about the Philadelphia Phillies offense after coming out kind of quietly in that series against the Braves? And we have some news on the City Edition jersey announcement. I have a date for you. I also have some thoughts. So we'll get into all of that on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for checking us out. I really appreciate it. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. I really appreciate it. And today's the day to be watching on YouTube. I'll tell you what, because not only am I having a spectacular hair day, but I finally got my graphic back that I accidentally deleted. So you can see my Twitter handle and everything, my name, and actually know who I am. So I got that all back and everything. So it's all good. And it's also all good because the Philadelphia Phillies won a baseball game yesterday. We talked about that in yesterday's episode and reviewed that. So if you want to hear my review of the Brave series, you can jump into that on yesterday's episode, but it's full speed ahead, full steam ahead. I don't know what the expression is. You get the point. We're heading to Cincinnati, and we're looking forward to, well, they're playing at home. You understand what I'm saying. The Cincinnati Reds series begins tonight. The Phillies are focused on them, as are we here on Locked On Phillies. So let's take a look at what to keep an eye on in this series. Oh, by the way, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And Christopher Sanchez is going to get his season started tonight as he takes the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies. 6:40 p.m. game time between the Phillies and the Reds. It seems like the rain is going to let up enough that they can get this game in. Don't know about Tuesday and Wednesday, but he's going to be facing off against Andrew Abbott. Now, Andrew Abbott, if you don't know him from last year with the Reds, 8-6 record, nothing crazy there. 3.87 ERA. 120 strikeouts, so 1.32 whip. I mean, those numbers look respectable, and then you look at it and you say, okay, through 109 and a third innings pitched last year, and it was his first time in the major leagues. Walked a bunch of guys, 44 in 109 and a third innings pitched, but he struck out a bunch of guys, 120. So you look at that. I guess it's not a bunch of walks, but it's enough that you can say, okay, you can be a little bit patient with this guy. He also gave up 16 home runs, which is right around like one every 9 innings. So I'm not a big math guy. It's generally about that much. Don't get me in the comments where it's like, oh, it's one every 9.7 innings. Anyway, he's just a young pitcher that you should be able to take advantage of, right? You should be able to. He's the fourth guy in the rotation for the Cincinnati Reds. You should be able to handle Andrew Abbott. Now, he's a lefty. So we'll see. Does Brandon Marsh get to play tonight? Does Bryson Stott get to play tonight? It's going to be very interesting because they had two lefties to face against the Atlanta Braves. Brandon Marsh was out for both of those. Bryson Stott only sat on Sunday. Bryce Harper is expected to be back after getting the day off Sunday due to back soreness and just general soreness from doing a front flip into a metal cavern in the camera. Well, but that's going to be an interesting look at for the lineup. And it'll be interesting to see with the lineup. We're going to talk more about the offense in a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not Brandon Marsh is a guy that Rob Thompson decides to platoon and he's not a full-time starter in left field, or that he gets a chance against the lefty. Now, I always normally do this if you've been listening to the podcast at all or following us on YouTube or anything. I talk about the ESPN matchup predictor. According to ESPN Analytics, Phillies have a 59% chance to win tonight. Cincinnati, 41% chance. So the Phillies are favored in this one. They're minus 145 on the money line for anyone who's interested in the gambling portion of the action tonight. But here's the other stuff to look at, right? This is very interesting because the stat comparison between the Cincinnati Reds and the Philadelphia Phillies is different. We'll talk through it. So Cincinnati Reds are batting 327 as a team to start the year. Phillies 232. That's not good. That's why we're talking about the offense. Phillies have only scored 12 runs. The Reds have scored 20. The Reds have more hits. They have more homers. They have better on-base percentage. They have a better slugging percentage. They have a lower ERA, nearly half the ERA of the Phillies. They have a lower whip. They have one more walk as a pitching staff. They have one more strikeout as a pitching staff, and their opponent batting average is like 80 points, more than 80 points lower than the Phillies. So you might say, wow, the Reds, are they really good? Are they a significantly better team? No, they opened up their season against the Washington Nationals, and the Philadelphia Phillies opened up their season against the Atlanta Braves. So that's a big difference, and that's something you got to keep in mind. The level of competition, the Braves feel attainable to us, right, as Phillies fans, because you beat them in the postseason the past 2 years. They're in your division. You want to compete for the NL East. You want to be one of those teams at the top of their division when everything's all said and done. So we look at that and we say, we're expected to be as good as that team. But then you look around the landscape of baseball, and there's a lot of teams out there like the Cincinnati Reds. Solid team. I mean, it's not like, oh, this series is going to be a walk in the park. That'll happen the first time you play the Nationals, which is coming up. But it's not that I'm saying the Reds are not a good baseball team, right? That's not it at all. I'm just saying that when you compare everybody to the Braves or the Phillies, like, you look like a lesser baseball team. The Phillies, I think fans just got caught up in the whole comparing yourself to the Braves. And now you get a chance to see what your average baseball team looks like in the Cincinnati Reds. So that'll be very interesting to see tonight, is how do the Phillies match up with a team that's not a juggernaut. Now, some good starts to the year for the Cincinnati Reds for a couple of guys. Nick Martini has 2 home runs, both in the same game, both, I believe, on opening day. It might have been Friday, because the Phillies opener getting pushed back makes me forget when other stuff happened around the league. But Nick Martini has 2 homers. He's batting .500 on the year with 7 RBIs. Will Benson, .417 batting average. It's very early in the season to be looking at batting average, but he's had a hot start. And those 7 RBIs for Nick Martini leads the ball club for Cincinnati. Meanwhile, for the Phillies, I mean, Bryson Stott's batting .444, so you can see why the average doesn't really make a difference. Here's what's crazy. Nick Castellanos, who's listed here, but he is listed as the Phillies leader in RBIs with 2. The Phillies offense has been quiet through the first 3 games, and they played the Atlanta Braves. But you just look at the players and the lineups and everything, and you just realize, okay, the Phillies are a significantly better team. Like Will Benson, Jonathan India, Heimer Candelario, like, these are guys that are good players, like solid players, Spencer Steer, but they're not the juggernaut lineup that the Phillies put out. Another guy that I'll be really interested in is Elly De La Cruz for the Cincinnati Reds. I'm assuming a lot of you know who Elly De La Cruz is, but if you don't, the guy is electric. He's fast as the wind. He's powerful as thunder. I don't know. I keep comparing him to like storm things, but the guy is an electric baseball player. It's going to be really fun to watch him. It's also going to be really fun to see how the Phillies work with him at the plate. He's a switch hitter, right-handed fielder, but switch hitter. So you're not going to get any matchup advantage really against him. It'll be cool to see Christopher Sanchez get a chance to work around this lineup. And it's also an opportunity for a guy in Christopher Sanchez to bring this more towards the Phillies, to see what he has to start the year. Ranger Suarez looked solid yesterday. Zach Wheeler looked dominant on Friday. Aaron Nola looked miserable on Saturday. So it's been a mixed bag for Philadelphia Phillies starters. Christopher Sanchez's role expanded the second time on Walker went down with a shoulder impingement. So it's going to be very important that he can give the Philadelphia Phillies good starts. You're not expecting him to be a Cy Young contender. He's your 4th and 5th pitcher when Walker comes back. But last year he showed really, really promising stuff. He was a great part of this rotation. Is that a Ranger Suarez 1 year below us, like below 2 ERA, and then you just don't really find it for the next couple of years type of thing? Or is this a year we find out that Christopher Sanchez is legit? It's going to start with this game against the Reds tonight, and it's much better than if he had faced that Braves lineup. This lineup cannot hold a candle to the Atlanta Braves, the one the Reds trot out there. And that's not even, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Reds. There are a lot of lineups in baseball that can't hold a candle to the Braves. They're just an unbelievable team. So, great opportunity for the Phillies. Would love to see them get a win tonight. That's the winning streak. 2 in a row. Would love that, even if it's a short one. Build on that momentum from the win against the Braves in the final game of that series and continue to attack the lesser teams that you're going to have on the schedule coming up. I like the Phillies tonight. I like Christopher Sanchez to have a really strong outing. And I also want to see the bullpen really settle in. But more important than anything in this series is going to be the offense. More important than the pitching, more important than the bullpen. Like, I am very interested to see how the offense plays against the Cincinnati Reds and against some easier pitchers to face. And we're going to talk about coming up their slow start to the year and stuff that they need to work on, both as individuals and as a team offensively, to bust out of this short 3-game early season slump. So we'll talk about that as we continue Locked On Phillies. The sports calendar is absolutely loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet the tourney, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, so much more. All of that stuff. You got to go ahead and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can make your first bet a big win. Baseball is a great opportunity for you to get after it and make it some bets. I mean, there's a lot of data out there when you get deeper into the season, and even early, you might get a feel on some teams before the odds makers over at FanDuel decide that they have it figured out themselves. So, good opportunity to win. Again, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I also want to tell you about my friends over at LinkedIn. You know LinkedIn, come on. It's like the #1 professional website in the world. And you might be struggling to close deals, right? Selling business to business is tougher than it's ever been. And that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's an intelligent sales platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, increase sales performance, all of that. You know what that sounds like? I hear like the cash registered ka-chinging when I read that. It's a way to help you be more successful and make more money with your business. You target the right buyers, surface key signals, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. It's fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform. Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. So right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Again, just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and you can get started. All right, let's talk about the offense, right? Because we need to get into this. We really do, folks. I've seen people complaining about the Philadelphia Phillies' slow start to the season. I didn't really consider it a slow start offensively to the season, which you might say, Bryce Harper doesn't have a hit. Trey Turner has only 2 hits to start the year. Like, isn't this kind of disappointing to you? I try and always be understanding of the contributing factors. And the #1 contributing factor to the Philadelphia Phillies offense and the way it started was the fact that you're facing a really darn good team in the Atlanta Braves. Good pitching, good bullpen. You saw Chris Sale, Max Fried, and Spencer Strider start the year. I mean, there's some teams where each of those guys would be, I think Chris Sale would be #1 on some teams, like with just nothing. But even if he's not, like, they could be #1 or #2 pitchers on a lot of teams in baseball, and Chris Sale's their 3. So that shows you the talent level. And everyone's so caught up in the graphic that said the Phillies had the best bullpen in baseball. Check who's right below them, because it's the Atlanta Braves, according to that. You just saw really good pitching. So you have to consider that when thinking about the numbers for the Philadelphia Phillies, the stats for the hitters. That being said, when I look at everything as far as the average, it's not where you'd expect it to be for some of these guys. Trey Turner, 182. Yohan Rojas doesn't have a hit yet. Bryce Harper doesn't have a hit yet. Like, you're seeing some of the guys that you would expect, and Rojas doesn't belong to be in that conversation. I just know people bring him up. But you see Turner and Harper struggling early, and you say, oh, here we go again. Slow start to the season, specifically with Trey Turner, because we know how much trouble he had last year. But then you see some guys that you're not expecting to be the biggest bats in the lineup that are having success. Like I told you earlier, Bryson Stott's batting 444. Alec Boehm, 333. Repeating numbers for the two young guys there, members of the daycare. Brandon Marsh is batting 167 with 5 strikeouts. So that's a problem, but he has 2 RBIs. He has that home run that caused those 2 RBIs. I mean, it's his only hit of the year, but he's also had to face a couple of tough lefties, which is why this will be fun to see if Rob Thompson trusts him to go back out there against a lefty tonight, if he will be in the lineup. I don't know. I look at this, and people who worry about the offense after 3 games, I say, one, you're playing in the Northeast. The weather's not great yet. It's not warm. It doesn't fly out of the yard, the baseball, like it will when you get to like late April, May, definitely once you get the summer months, June, July, August. But be patient with them. You face a tough pitching staff. It's early on in the season. The weather wasn't great. You're going to get into a situation where we realize that this Phillies offense is as good as they were last year. I mean, I believe the month that they had led baseball in total home runs was a month that this was basically the same lineup. So they're going to come around. They didn't just forget how to hit. This is not more of the same from the Arizona Diamondbacks series. You also have to remember, too, a lot of baseball is mental. The Phillies lost out clearly in that series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. And those losses in a row then led into a long offseason. I don't count spring training, right? No one cares who wins or loses in spring training. You don't get anything saying, hey, we beat the Blue Jays in spring training down in Dunedin. And next thing you know, you're building confidence based on it. No, you need to win regular season or playoff baseball games that matter. And leading into the season, you ended with a couple of losses last year. Then you lose the first 2 to Atlanta. It goes, okay, we just need to find a way to win a darn baseball game. I don't think it's more of the same because I saw a lot of that. It's the same approach. It's the same players. It's the same lineup. It's the same manager. I get what you're saying, but give them a chance to prove that they stink before you tell them you stink. Like, they're not a bad baseball team. They're not a bad offense. And the names, they're going to go ahead and even out. Water finds its level more so in Major League Baseball than any other professional sport because there's just so many darn games. So Alec Boehm is not going to hit 333 this year. Bryson Stott is not going to hit 444 this year. And Bryce Harper is not going to go hitless for the season. It's going to even itself out. So I would preach patience with the offense. I'm not saying with performance of the team. If you were upset that they lost 2 of 3 to the Atlanta Braves, I get that. I totally understand the team losing making you annoyed, regardless of what time it is. But you can't start looking at the offense and saying, oh, well, they have the same issues with approach and stuff like that. This will be a fun series against the Reds. Well, it should be a fun series because you're going to be in a situation where you can face pitchers you're more comfortable having a more reserved approach, right? Against a guy like Chris Sale, against a guy like Max Fried, Spencer Strider, and I know the Phillies got to Fried in game 2 of the regular season, but against guys of that caliber, you can't really sit on the first 2 pitches of an at-bat. Like, you have to be aggressive, and if the first pitch is a fastball that's hittable, that might be the only good pitch you get against those guys. Against the Reds staff, there will be at-bats where the fastball in the zone is the best pitch and it might come first, but there'll be times where they'll leave breaking balls over. They're just a lot less fine-tuned. They're not as good at pitchers. So you can afford to be a little bit more conservative with your approach, which leads to less strikeouts out of the zone, which leads to better offense, which leads to the team winning more games, scoring more runs, all that great stuff. So I think you're going to see that in this series. If we don't, well, we'll have another conversation because I don't know if you know this, but I do this podcast 5 days a week. So I'll have plenty of time to talk to you about how you were right to worry about the offense if we are proven in the next, month or 2 that they haven't been as productive as you need them to be. Right now, take a deep breath on the offense. They've got the names. They've got the ability. They're going to be fine. I'll tell you something. I don't know if it's going to be fine, though. This really bothers me. We're going to talk about the Phillies City Edition jersey. The debut date was announced. The launch party was announced. I'll break down what I got from the Phillies PR staff today with the information on that and what you should look for and how I feel about it because I think we've all seen the leaks. We'll get into that coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. I want to tell you about Amazon Fire TV, though. Fire TV is your destination for sports. From live games to highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, and you can use the Fire TV stick that plugs into your existing TV. You get millions of movies, TV episodes, free and live TV. What more could you want? It might be opening weekend for baseball like we just went through. Or you might be wanting to catch the final games of the college basketball tournament. Whatever the sports reason, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And they recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, including us at Locked On. And all of that's for free. I mean, you've got a bunch of great stuff on big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. So go ahead and check it out. I mean, they've got everything, not just sports, cooking, entertainment, gaming, travel, news. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. So I'll just tell you, the Philadelphia Phillies have a big plan for the announcement and the debut of their City Edition jerseys. Yes, they're getting City Edition jerseys this year. Major League Baseball has been doing this for a handful of years now. The Phillies haven't had one yet. So I was excited to see that they were going to be getting one. Less excited when I saw some of the potential leaks of it. So we'll go ahead and see how that all plays out when the jersey's actually unveiled. But it will be unveiled coming up on April 5th, which, if my calendar is correct, today is the 1st. That's this Friday. Then that's unveiled as far as just showing us what it is. They're not going to wear them this Friday. But next Friday, Friday the 12th, they're going to wear them for the first time. So this Friday, we get to find out exactly what they look like. Next Friday, they'll wear them in a game for the first time. And the plan for the Philadelphia Phillies is that they're going to wear the jerseys every Friday home game during the 2024 season. So it's not just like this is a once a month type of thing, like once every 2 months. No, you're going to be seeing this if they play like 3 Friday home games in a row. You're going to be seeing this pretty darn regularly. So they better be good jerseys. And the leaks that I've seen are like almost sky blue with yellow lettering and stuff like that. And the lettering doesn't look great to me. I'm not a huge fan of the stuff that's been posted on social media, but I don't know if that's actually what the jersey will look like. It seems likely that's what it is, but we'll see how it actually plays out. It'll be cool to see a new jersey. I always get excited. Maybe it'll look better in actual person than it's looked in the pictures. Maybe it'll be something different entirely because the Phillies haven't confirmed any of those leaks yet. But yeah, you're going to find out on Friday whether or not we have a new jersey to hate or you have a new jersey you've got to buy. So a busy week for the Phillies, not just on the field with the jersey department as well. And a lot to continue to talk about. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to discuss what goes on at tonight's game. We might have some weather rolling in, so we'll talk about scheduling and stuff like that. And just a lot more to react to as the Phillies look to go for win number 2 on the season tonight. But that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.